This is my identity. This is who I am. Tiffany's the house flipper, right? And he was like, "Oh, I buy paper. You should do that too." And I thought, I've been doing this for 12 years now. I have a lot to go, but I hadn't even heard of this before. And he said, "Yeah, it's way more lucrative, but also, by the way, it's way less work. And here's how it works." And I proceeded to just grill him.
Welcome to season 3 of Beyond the Business Plan, the podcast for burned out professionals and entrepreneurs who know there's more to life than just hitting the next revenue goal. I'm Leanne Lyon, founder and chief joy officer of joyminder.com. I'm a private money broker and creator of the Sailing System, SAILING system, for designing a business and life you actually love. Each week this season, I'll be talking with guests and sharing stories about what happens after the business plan works. Money, real estate, legacy, faith, and whole person success. If you're ready to join the sales setters and chart your own course beyond burnout, hit that follow or subscribe so you catch every episode. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, I'm capable of more, but the path I'm on is just wearing me down? If you're feeling burned out at work, craving more freedom, or wondering whether there's a smarter way to build wealth through real estate investing, today's conversation is for you. Our guest today has walked from traditional real estate investing into promissory note investing and now helps people think differently about leverage, opportunity, and a more joyful next chapter. Whether you're in a corporate sales role, real estate, or simply sensing that entrepreneurship might be part of your calling, this conversation can help you grow and go beyond without grinding yourself into the ground. Who is this transformation artist helping high achievers explore investing, leverage, and a more joyful next chapter? Let's find out. Tiffany, are you there?
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Tiffany, it's so good to see you. I know our listeners are going to love hearing your story because so many of them are trying to figure out how to build something better without losing themselves in the process. And of course, we've met before.
Yes, yes. Through podcasting, believe it or not.
Through podcasting, believe it or not. So, Tiffany, before we get into the business side of your journey, I'd love to go back a little bit further. When you were a child, what did you naturally love to do, create, organize, lead, or imagine? And how do you see that same energy showing up in the work that you're doing today?
And that's a really good question. I hadn't really translated how it shows up in my work today because I believe I've shifted a little bit to bloom a little bit more. Once you hit your 40s, you're like, I had a little bit of liberation. But quite honestly, I was the kid that was in the dirt, right? We didn't have tablets and iPads and phones and so forth. But also, if I had a screwdriver, I was taking apart the remotes and other various things, poking holes in my mom's waterbed just to see how things work. Because I love the fascination of deeply the concept of how things work, but that's led to me to also understand I love how people work. So when you really study how people work, you're like, wow, I see how your brain is working with this, which has led me to be really well working with people because I'm like, I want to know why you think the way you think, and I honor the way that you think, and I love that, and how can I encourage you in that? And that's the gifts the Lord has given me, is allowing me to see the good in people and then visionary with them to be able to say, hey, not like, why haven't you done this? But like, wow, can you imagine if your company did this type of thing, or if your investments did this? So it went from, as a kid, taking things apart, deciding with a couple of really amazing influencing teachers on me to say, wow, Tiff, you always say you want to be an astronaut. Why don't you go to school for engineering? And this is the school you should go to. And that was like, I was dead set. That was what I was going to do. That was what I was going to be. And that was my dream for 4 years. And then partway into college was like, I think these guys want it way more than me, and they're better than me, and I don't think I'm going to win. And I'm one of these people, it's like, well, if I'm not going to win the grand prize of being on the next slot to go to the space shuttle, what else can I do? Because if I can't win that, I'm going to go try to do something else that I know I can win, which isn't a great personality type to have, but man, it's got me pretty far.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And yeah, it's so fun to see how we can connect. And I think we're really happiest when we are doing something that we love to do, before we were told. In fact, my theory is that people go to college and they either are trying to tick off one of their parents or please a different parent or go for the money.
Oh, right. I think it was the tick off the parent because they were like, you should just do something at home. You don't need to go to college. I'm like, well, no one else has. I think I can. So I'm gonna try.
Awesome. Well, let's go back to your early days in real estate investing. I think you mentioned that it was early O's, early-ish O's.
Yes.
What pulled you in, and then what kept you moving forward?
Actually, that's a continuation of my story, meaning I decided to go to school for aerospace engineering, which is these are like my actual dorm room wall posters that were stapled. They're in a big fat layer, so depending which one I shuffle, and this one's my favorite right now, it's always on my wall. But because I think I still want to go to space someday, and that's on the. I just figured I'd gotta make a lot of money to get there and pay another country, but our country's doing it. Why not? But when I dropped out of school, I decided I want to go learn how to build computers, so I got into that, and I thought maybe I don't want to do this either, and I started working at the airport. What do you do at the airport? You get there at 4 a.m. because that's when people start arriving for flights. But I saw my very first real estate infomercial. They come on at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that was a Robert Allen session that was saying, hey, did you know you could buy money, no money, and you could buy property with no money down whatsoever. And as a dropout working at the airport, this was exactly what I needed to hear. And I was 22 at the time. And that was what led me to believe I could. And whenever I got to the seminar, they said, by the way, it's 4 or 5 grand. And I thought, well, that isn't for me because you said no money. This is expensive. I ended up actually getting an offer from the company a few weeks later when they saw me at my job at the airport because they flew out all over the country. And I started working for that company, which I think God it just opens doors. I'm not sure how and why, but it was phenomenal to think time and a place and the day I was working in the lane I was working in and the way that they go through the Orlando airport.
Mhm.
And that was where my journey started because they said, hey, by the way, not just come work for us, we'll show you the ropes. You get to work with all these phenomenal house flipping speakers, but you need to go take the training that's mandatory by the company to learn how to go flip houses. And by the way, it wasn't just Robert Allen, it was Carlton Sheets. He taught creative finance. It was JG Banks. He taught probate. It was a couple other no name like American Cash Flow, where you learn how to paper and you learn how to do notes and so forth. So, under all of these brands from this company, they taught me just a wild creative thinking rabbit trail that I went on. But at the same time, it taught me that there's so much out there that you can really do with no money down. And this is actually where it gets crazy because I lived in Florida and it was 2006. You could do no wrong in real estate. The bubble hadn't popped yet. People didn't see the bubble. And then '07, '08, fast forward to '09, that was when they were like, Tiff, everything's on sale. I know the sky is falling, but please start buying. And they talked me into starting to buy. So I started buying fourplexes and single families. Finally, after getting a lot of encouragement and mentorship through the company and through all of the people that were teaching in '09. So that's really where my journey started. And I was still in my
Wild.
20s, and it was like, this is possible because when you go to the closing table and you get a check back from a bank-owned property because of the way you negotiated it, it was like, I could do so many more of these. Everyone else should be doing this too, but it's like you have to do the first one.
Yeah. And so when we talked previously, you mentioned, at some point you had, was it 16 different rentals that you had
Yeah.
running and things like that?
Yes.
So was that the point when you realized that that original path was no longer sustainable?
That was the time when I got introduced to somebody that came into my life. That was another consultant because we were out for another seminar guru TV guy because I still loved going out and flying and educating people on the process of how to flip houses while I secretly quietly went home and had all of my rentals and all of my flips. I did like one or two a year.
Hmm.
And someone said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And I was like, "We're the experts in the back of the room. I flip houses." And he was like, "Ah, I bet you're a retired landlord." And excuses, justification, my brain is exploding. And I'm like, this is my life. This is my identity. This is who I am. Tiffany's the house flipper, right? And he was like, oh, I buy paper. You should do that too. And I thought, I've been doing this for 12 years now. I have a lot to go, but I hadn't even heard of this before. And he said, Yeah, it's way more lucrative, but also, by the way, it's way less work. And here's how it works. And I proceeded to just grill him for dinner after dinner. But then we had a few extra weekends together where I finally put the pieces together and he said, "Look, this is what it looks like on paper." I went and did all the math. A few weeks into this, I came home from an event and I told my husband, "We're going to sell everything that we own." And he was like, "Excuse me?" I said, "We're changing everything because look at the math. We could sell all of our rental property." And this was 2018. And I
Mhm.
said, "Oh no, 2017." I said, "We're going to sell everything. And I believe that we're going to do better than we've ever done." And he's like, "Well, how?" And I was like, "I don't know how he's doing this on paper, but I'm going to show you." And what it was is understanding the leverage that all the biggest buildings in every downtown, they're all banks, but we don't really understand why because they don't actually own the property, they own the paper. And what that means is when you go to closing, you're signing a big stack of paperwork. That's their asset. That's what they're buying, not the actual real estate. They don't have to worry about tenants. You're not their tenant. You're just the owner, and they're the owner of that paperwork. And he showed me that I could own that paperwork, and that is the asset that I get to hold on to instead of having tenants from here forward. And I thought, this is blowing my mind. I need to chew on it a lot, but I think I get it. Let's do it. How do I buy them? He said, "Tiff, go ahead and Google it." He sent me on a rabbit trail that was like trying to find something that is a good old boys club. And I didn't realize he was in the good old boys club, and you got to know the people that move the space because it's hard to Google a note. It's so vague, right? How do you Google a note? You got to know a discounted property, mortgage, real estate note, and what does that mean? And all the people have bought the cheap ad space. So when you get to know some of the fun guests that you've had on, there's actually a little world of these people that have this exchange of these notes, and some lenders are willing to host it or sell that off in chunks to people to allow them to have these portfolios, and they're willing to be the Costco, buy them by the pallet and sell them off by the bottle.
I love that analogy. Yes, the first time you ever explained this to me on a previous show, I think in my previous podcast even, when you as you explained it, I'm like, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. You're kidding me. Because I've done the Airbnb thing where I had to, every few days, I had a 3-day minimum, but it's still, once or twice a week, I was going and changing sheets and washing clothes and, doing all this stuff not only for my own house, but for this, for these guests. And then if things didn't work, I had an Airbnb that had an elevator. Well, the elevator in the building went out. Whose problem was that at 2 a.m.? Mine,
Of course.
and it wasn't, but it was. And so, of course, my renters that week happened to be older people that, 4 flights of stairs was a really big deal. And so it just was, always this thing, or I'd go there and the cute little couple that I thought was staying there, oh no, it was a bridal shower and I had glitter everywhere. Glitter. I mean, it took me months to get rid of that glitter. In fact, other people even noted, well, there's glitter. I'm like, I can't get rid of it. So, so what you're saying is with what you're doing, nobody calls you in the middle of the night. Nobody says that they need their roof replaced. Nobody wrecks the garbage disposal.
No.
Or if
All
they
those tenant
do,
worries
they
gone.
fix it themselves.
Yeah. They don't call ever. And if they do default, then 90 days in, you get to start filing foreclosure. But that's actually what led me down an interesting separate path, is that I have such a big heart. So you can actually go in to purchase these notes on purpose in what's called a performing or a good status, or a non-performing bad status. And being able to go and get non-performing notes is a whole nother animal, because you could choose to just be this driver in this, let's go, we're gonna buy them bad, we're gonna foreclose on them quick and get out the house. And I realized my heart doesn't belong there in that manner. It's really like buy them and call them and say, "Hey, I'm your lender. Are you okay?" And they're like, "Who are you? Is this a prank call?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "No." I said, "No, no, I have the paperwork. I'm your new lender. Can we help you? Like, can we waive? Because I don't have all of this red tape and all these departments and all the craziness you have to go through that these giant banks or even smaller banks have. I have just what's legal that I'm allowed to do. And I can just say, "Hey, I bought your debt. I can waive all of it. Or I can waive all your late payments. I can catch you up. I can renegotiate. Let's restructure your loan. I can do anything that's legal, but I could say, "Are you okay? What happened? Can we get you caught back up? Can I restructure your loan?" The only thing I can't do is what's not legal, right? But it's very few laws. But these guys like rule, book department, red tape, etc. I don't have time, etc. That's why they sell them off to people that could take them. And I have the ability to negotiate. And as long as I offer that equally to all my clients, I could never get in trouble. And I do offer it equally to all my clients. But sometimes what ends up happening is I have to foreclose, and that's okay. But I will try hard to find you. And there are sometimes when some people say, you know what? I waved my white flag a long time ago and I left. You can have it. And I get given their house back with a single piece of paper. And I'm like, are you sure? Can I pay you? And they're like, no, just something happened and I walked away. They just treat it like a rental, like those years of payments they don't care about. And they just needed that end. And I was able to give them the closure that they needed so bad with at least calling them up to ask why and how can I help.
Wow. I want to dig more into that heart because I really think as I've talked with more and more real estate investors and people in real estate, I hear that more and more. I'm going to take a quick break here because we have to pay for the show too. And if you are listening and you're intrigued by this and you are feeling called to what we're talking about, I host a summit. And every single time we talk about these types of things, I bring in speakers who can really pour into you. Many of them are coaches that can teach you what you need to know to move along in a business. Maybe you're just starting out. Maybe you've launched a business. Maybe you're at this amazing stage where you have money and you don't really know how to grow it. Or you have this huge heart, like we're hearing from Tiffany, where you can really make a difference in others people's lives. So I'm going to invite you to go to joyminder.com and click on the download the sailing system. You'll actually get a little workbook. It'll talk you through, how to go from, I hate to say it, it sounds harsh, but from failing to sailing. What's the difference? What do the two acronyms really stand for? But if you, like Tiffany has already mentioned, if you feel a calling, if you feel there's a purpose bigger than you've stepped into, Tiffany and I agree. We think we know where that purpose came from, and it was set long before you existed. And so step into that, find out what that is, and download the sailing system. I'd love to hear where you're at and move you forward. So, Tiffany, I was a real estate agent. And when I first did it, one of my dearest friends at the time was like, Leanne, no, no, you're not cut out to be an agent. That is so cutthroat. You're gonna get eaten alive. And she wasn't right, but she wasn't wrong. I found so many people who were willing to be my friend and promised me, oh, we're going to be in touch and I've loved working with you. And, I'd reach out a while later and they're like, stop talking to me. I'm like, what? What in the world? But real estate investors, totally different. As I go to RIAs and different meetups, a lot of jeans, a lot of t-shirts, and a lot of heart. What's your experience?
I find the same. I never felt compelled to get my license. I've even actively discouraged it. Even my little sister was like, "I want to be in real estate just like you," and she ran to go get her license. I said, "I never asked you to do that," and they burnt her out real bad under a big name brand, nationwide. And I said, I have agents work for me so they can go find the leads and find the deals. If anything, they're my bird dogs willing to work for a commission. And then I find the people with the money and I make the deal happen by following through with a flip or a fix or a wholesale, a rental, whatever that may be. And the space of investors, most of the time, not just some of the time, most of the time, they're very generous because there's so many deals to go around that we can all help each other out. I've even called some of those bandit signs that are on the side of the road says I buy houses or, handyman special or whatever it may be. And I just say, hey, I'm a local investor too. Can I be on your list? Maybe I want to buy from you, but also, what are you looking for? Maybe I can just hand it off to you.
Mhm.
So you just never know. Let's collaborate instead of be each other's enemy because I'm not trying to score a listing. I'm trying to like fix something up properly, which is another animal. I'm not a slumlord, but I'm also not a slum fixer. So I want to fix it up and not hide up the mold, to be able to push out another good piece of real estate that I know someone could create a home in. So it's just like a different perspective that I think I have. Now you're going to have your bad apples, right? But I truly believe that something I heard the other day that was like, if you believe that God called you to be where you're going to go, then you should also carry the same belief that He's going to open the doors and have the deals and the clients come your way for it.
I love that. Yeah. For now, my, I'm going to get teary here. Um, so my journey it has been in 2019. We had a manufacturing company. We closed. Little more to that story, but I started Joyminder really right then. 2020 is when I got my real estate license, and I did actually create a video that said, I believe a home is so important because it really is. When you do have home ownership, I mean, you put in roots in ways that you don't when you rent. I was a renter a few years ago for a year, and I was shocked, having been a homeowner at that point for 20 plus years. I was shocked at how my attitude changed towards the rental.
Really?
Yes. I just if I bumped the wall, I wasn't like, "Oh, we got to fix that right now," because I knew I didn't have
Hmm.
to. Not that I intentionally abused the property by any stretch, but they do say Section 8 housing will get 2 to 3 calls a month versus, more traditional rentals, you might get 1 or 2 calls a year
Hmm.
for fixes and different things. But regardless, I think I've always felt, even with Joyminder, that there was a piece I hadn't quite reached yet. There was another piece to fall into the puzzle. And last year, that piece clicked in. And it clicked in that I get to educate like I was when I was a teacher. I get to use real estate knowledge, which I really find fascinating. I get to use my number sense again, from being a math teacher. And best of all, I get to connect people and help grow businesses in a way that and at a scale that I was never able to really fully do until that last puzzle piece just fell in. And yeah, it feels really good when that happens.
Right. And I think that comes to people at different times in their life,
Oh, sure.
like, and I've, at one of the books you suggested to me, multiplying your God-given talent, your God-given purpose, right, by John Bevere. It helped me understand that the things that even potentially I was feeling guilty for, that I held this now sense of peace over because I am driven and I'm competitive and I just don't quit and I don't stop. And some people look down on me for that because that could lead to another new entrepreneurship or another shiny object. But when you go to new shiny things, but you win and then you win and then you win, it's like, well, is it so wrong to want to do more fun things? And when the doors keep opening, that's the gift that I've been given in being okay to be in business because it's very difficult life to be an entrepreneur. But I also appreciate in the entrepreneur space when you go to networking events for entrepreneurs, everyone there gets it and they're so supportive of you. So I recommend all of the networking groups for all of the entrepreneurs and all the meetups and whatnot because it's a tough life to be a business owner, and you should surround yourself with the people that want to pull you up instead of drag you down. Like, quite frankly, some of my W-2ers, like, just go get a job. And I'm like, there's not safety in that for me personally.
No, there isn't for me either. And we're in different time zones, but I know you have come to my Leaders League meetup, which I host once a week as well. Where people who are entrepreneurial can come in and we pour into each other. We share things. And every week we have a little bit of a different focus and different people show up. And it's really a wonderful way to connect at a very easy in an easy way. One question I think people may have, though, listening to us is like, okay, so you have to be really into real estate. You have to really know a lot about real estate. Um, and if they're saying, well, I'm just in healthcare or I'm just whatever, teacher, um, they might feel like they can't step into what you're talking about, this note buying thing. Do you want to dispel any myth there?
Yeah, yeah, a lot of that because there are an innumerable number of free resources nowadays. So the stuff that I was paying 1,000, five, tens of thousands that I've paid for, 30, $40,000 seminars over the years is easily accessible online now. But what I'm going to impress upon you is that you can get all those steps, like step 1 to 100 to go flip your very first house and go find the funding for it from Leanne herself. But also, you can do what the seminar companies really give you. And that's the motivation. And that's the encouragement to keep going. And that's like the mental fortitude, which is why I recommend like Think and Grow Rich and these books that teach you you have to think of money differently. You have to broaden your horizon to understand that it's going to be hard. But like one of my favorite quotes I love pulling out of my hat is Bruce Lee. The master has failed more than the beginner has ever tried. And that's because you might have to write 200 offers because you're figuring it out on your own without paying maybe an expert to get you there faster. You can still do this as a hobby until you make it how you need it to make it, but you can't give up. You have to keep going at all costs. And if it's costing you, then you need to figure out what you need to sacrifice. Do you need to sacrifice your Instagram time, your family time, your dinner time, your morning sleep, your gym time? I don't know what it is you have to sacrifice, but my sacrifices come in different ways all over the time constantly. Sometimes it was my night sleep. I was like, well, I got to stay up for an extra couple hours. This is what I'm committing to myself. And then for a while, like a whole year, I deleted Facebook and Instagram and anything fun off my phone, and I have Wordle. That was it. I got like 7 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day to get one word down, and that was like my break. But you just have to decide how bad you want it. But quite honestly, your retirement is gonna see the results of it because you can do all this stuff really creatively. Your self-directed IRA, your self-directed 401k, your self-directed like Section 125 stuff. You can do your HSA, self-directed HSAs. You can do self-directed 529. So you could set your kids up for stuff like this and doing not just paper, not just rentals and real estate. You could do all of that in like postponable tax events. Like I get so excited of all the different creative ways now that I could sit and try to approach a deal, let alone still no money deals happening left and right. I mean, if you think no money deals aren't a possibility, you've already pre-shut yourself down to the possibility that it really is happening constantly right now. And there's a couple of gurus that they still tout it and they still sell it. And it's okay. Go learn from them. That's fine. There's a bunch of them. There's always going to be a bunch, but a lot of the information's free online anyway.
Yeah, and and to that point, when you can find a group like that and you can get the support like that, you might be able to go a little faster. You might be able to get it done a little sooner. So it's a matter of if you have the capital to invest into it to get that support, to get that. I mean, there's a couple hours a week that I tune in, and I might be multitasking, but I'm listening. I'm like, what did this deal sound like? What did this deal sound like? How do they creatively do this? How do they do that? What portal did they go in? Because I'm gonna always have to be learning. And there's always new things coming up, new FinCEN rules that came into play in March. And some people are like, oh, that's not gonna affect anything. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna affect a few things. It's definitely going to affect a few things. So we're gonna wrap up here relatively soon, and I'm not promising just in one more question. But tell us about your current grow and go beyond season. What are you building? What are you learning? What are you expanding right now in your life?
Well, I opened my fund 3 years ago and I've since converted it so that I'm allowed to talk about it publicly. So I have a Reg D 506C and I'm super excited that if someone wants to know notes, go learn it. If someone's like, "Oh my gosh, I love notes. I love where your heart is at," and you don't want to do it at all, you could just join my fund and live vicariously through me. Go sit in the back seat. I'm driving the car. We're going to go get a bunch of people saved out of foreclosure. We're going to do it creatively. And I'm just going to give you like a set it and forget it rate. So I can talk about the fund because that's what I primarily do. And that's just aspensagefund.com. Like people can go there and check it out. I also love education. So I have a bunch of YouTube videos that explain to you how notes work with no sales pitch whatsoever because I don't have one. If you want to do notes, I'm going to encourage you to do notes. You want to do real estate, I'm going to be your biggest fan. And as I said, YouTube's got a ton of free stuff for you. But from there, that's encouraged me to grow. And I highly recommend networking groups. So I love going to networking groups to be with like-minded people, going and guesting on podcasts. I have my own podcast now, and I call it Unveiling Journey, so that way I could share everybody's journey on my show too. And then from there, that's led me to a couple of new partnerships where now I'm dabbling into the space of AI, because AI can be a big solver when we need fractional COOs, we need fractional CFOs for our company. AI is a really big solver for that, but not just like an LLM, like Claude or ChatGPT, but we're talking like a higher level of intelligence. And my new business partner is inventing all sorts of things for that. So I've got a little bit of a right curve turn on some AI projects, but that's like in the works and on the way. So follow me on LinkedIn to keep posted for more of that.
And of course, Tiffany's information is below here, wherever you're watching us. If you're watching us, you may be on YouTube, but also listening to us, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, your favorite podcast channels. All the information to connect with Tiffany is below there. So, well, I think it is time. So for the listener who feels burned out or stuck or unsure whether entrepreneurship is really for them, what encouragement would you offer, knowing that entrepreneurship is hard, knowing it's really not for everyone? What would you say to those people?
I'm going to have you pour into a couple of entrepreneur books. There's a few out there, and if you're faith-based, there's phenomenal ones like the John Bevere books. They've really encouraged me to be pressing forward to the gifts that I've been given. But also, if you're not in a networking group with other entrepreneurs, even if it's just for the sake of like swapping referrals, you could pour your heart out to them and find a new friend to be able to get encouraged by the people that are there with you, fighting the good fight to stay in entrepreneur land. And I recommend letting those people pull you up while you need it, because I don't want anyone to suffer in silence. And if you're like, Tiff, I'm an introvert, you can call me. You can call Leanne. You can put on your time on our schedules, because we get there, we've been there, and we're there for each other. And when you find that person that can pull you up when you need, even if it's just 5 minutes, or you code word like, I just need 7 minutes, right? Just to change your perspective, whether it be a book, a group, a person, a buddy, find that, because it will get hard, but surround yourself with the right people and you can remain looking forward to like progressing to your vision.
Love it. That is such a great nugget right there. Just perfect. Tiffany, I really do enjoy spending time with you. I'm grateful that we are in each other's lives. I can't wait to see what continues to happen in your world. And to our audience, if today's conversation gave you a fresh way to think about wealth, freedom, and what's possible beyond burnout, I hope that you will hold on to that. Thank you for joining us and for sharing your wisdom so generously today, Tiffany. Audience, if you know somebody that needs to hear this message, please share this episode with just one person who needs a reminder that there are joyful ways to grow and go beyond. And keep listening so that you don't miss our future episodes. Keep spreading the joy, keep leading with heart, and I'll catch you on the next wave of success. Thanks again, Tiffany.
Thank you.
Thanks for sailing with me on Beyond the Business Plan, the podcast. If this episode helped you as a sales setter, the best next step is to follow the show and share it with one friend who's ready to move beyond burnout into a more aligned way of doing business and life. If you want to go deeper, join me live at the next Beyond the Business Plan Summit online, happening May 17th through 19th. You'll hear from experts on profit, real estate, legacy, and whole person planning, all through the lens of the sailing system, which you can download at joyminder.com. You can save your spot and get more details and download the sailing system at joyminder.com. Until next time, keep setting your course and adjusting your sails beyond the business plan.